You guys have all watched me sitting here talking endlessly into this microphone, and not a single person has had the decency to inform me that my mic was. I can see my OBS, and it totally didn't occur to me. My mic wasn't on. So there's going to be a really hilarious start to this video of me pantomiming, creating an opinion suppository. I suppose I'll start over again. Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. This is JT Viper, if you're not otherwise aware. Suppose you kind of see the snake, you can see the channel. And I'm here to talk to you about this National Post article, actually about the story behind this National Post article. Homophobic and transphobic activist, scare quotes, ordered to pay $55,000 to trans candidate over hateful flyer. The good news is that it's Canadian dollars, so he's really not losing that much. Anyway, all jokes aside, for everyone who said that, you know, Bill C-16 wasn't going to be used to crack down on people's speech and their expression and their engagement in political discourse, you can all suck it. What we have here? Well, seems what we have here is a failure to communicate. or a block, a prohibition on communication. The judge said the discrimination was severe and it was an intentional effort to block Morgan Ogre from participating in politics based on gender. I also mentioned just before my realization my mic wasn't working. It wasn't on. It was working. I'm an idiot. I mentioned that this isn't based on Morgan's gender. This is technically based on her gender expression. If we're gonna, I guess technically it's gender identity. If I double check on this, here we go. I'm gonna pull up C16 here. Sponsor, oddly enough, Jody Wilson-Raybould. Interesting. Full text of the bill. There it is. So the enactment also amends the criminal code to extend the protection against hate propaganda set out in that act to any section of the public that is distinguished by gender identity or expression, and to clearly set out that evidence that an offense was motivated by bias, prejudice, or hate based on gender identity or expression constitutes an aggravating circumstance that the court must take into consideration when it imposes a sentence. So yeah, the enactment amends the Canadian Human Rights Act to add gender identity and gender expression to the list of prohibited grounds of discrimination. And that's what we're seeing here. Discrimination. Now, as I was trying to say before my realization, in the immortal words of Tim Pool, let's read on. I'll move you guys over here a bit. There we go. The British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal has ordered Christian activist William Whatcott, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, to pay $55,000 to trans activist Morgan Ogre. So they refer to him as an activist straight up in the article. They don't make any bones about the scare quotes there. Activist. But sure enough, for the headlines, gotta do it for the headline. Used to be do it for the Vine. Tribunal member Devin Cousineau said $35,000 was compensation for a hate-filled flyer that Whatcott published when Ogre was running for provincial office in 2017, and $20,000 was to punish Whatcott for improper conduct during the 5-day hearing in December. you will see here in a moment that this was not a... You were in, it's not like an actual contempt of court where he's sitting there and like cursing at the court and refusing to show up and all the rest of it. This is for his chosen expression during the human rights trial. Ironic as it is. According to the tribunal here ruling, Watcott printed 1,500 of the flyers and distributed them in the Vancouver False Creek riding that Ogre was contesting as an NDP candidate. For those of you unaware, the NDP are I would say our farthest left mainstream party. The Greens are technically a party. They've held a couple of seats in the House of Commons, but I still wouldn't call them mainstream. They've kind of snuck one or two representatives in there in some elections, but largely unrepresented. They actually have their roots in the Canadian Communist Party from just decades and decades and decades ago. But anyway, enough on the Canadian politics lesson. The flyer had a photo of Ogre, described her as a biological male, and claimed she was promoting, quote, homosexuality and transvestism. It went on to state transsexuals were prone to sexually transmitted diseases and at risk of domestic violence, alcohol abuse, and suicide. Suicide is absolutely correct. That's not a discriminatory statement. To say that people who are transsexual, in this case you want to say it, transgender, are at a higher risk of suicide is an objective fact. So part of this man's discrimination was stating an objective fact about a demographic. I'm willing to bet that white people watch more golf than other demographics. No big surprise. And nobody surprised? No? We're all pretty much cool with that? Okay. There are more white NHL players than any other racial demographic in the NHL. Statistical fact. Transgender people commit suicide at a higher rate than any other demographic. Maybe rivaled by Native and First Nations people. Maybe. Anyway, I can't speak with any certainty to risk of domestic violence, alcohol abuse, or the STDs. However, it should be noted that for people who struggle with depression, struggling with alcoholism is typically kind of hand in hand with that. But I don't have the information here, so I would surmise that he's not far off, but I can't confirm. The flyer concluded, "Thankfully, Jesus Christ paid the price for your sin. You can turn to the merciful Christ and ask for forgiveness, and when the NDP come knocking at your door, you can tell them you won't vote for them." There should be an apostrophe there. Am I nuts, or have I been spelling won't incorrectly my entire life? No. Yeah, no, will not. I know it's the little things. But come on now. You are one of the largest, like the two biggest national newspapers in Canada. All right. I guess technically it's to be fair. Like at the very, what you could do there, and just to dig, if I was the writer, if I was the writer of this article, if I was Jonathan Hayward of the Canadian Press. Oh, sorry, David. Yeah, this is David Carrick. Oh, I believe the photo credit. Sorry. If I was him, I would have put that in like the square brackets and put with the apostrophe in it, because it's what they meant to say, not what they actually typed. Anyway, you won't vote for them because you believe in God's definition of gender and marriage. Anti-gay activist Bill Watcott, you could also say Christian fundamentalist, was charged with promoting hate after distributing flyers in Regina and Saskatoon in 2001 and 2002, calling homosexuals sodomites and child molesters. Well, there's a kid called Desmond is Amazing in New York. And a whole bunch of guys showed up to a gay bar to hoot and holler and throw dollar bills at him when he was doing a mock striptease on stage. People who criticized it were called homophobic, meaning that to criticize a bunch of homosexual men for hooting and hollering and offering up cash to a child for effecting a sort of striptease be homophobic. It wasn't my position. I do believe it was the position of the boy's mother. But let's read on. Ogre, who lost the election by 400 votes, possibly a reason for getting this upset, took the matter to the tribunal, claiming her human rights had been breached because the flyer was intended to discriminate and expose Ogre to hatred. Okay. He doesn't think you should be leading a party. He disagrees with your particular perspective on the concept of gender. He believes this because his religion, or his interpretation of his religion, tells him that this is what the correct thing is to believe. We're going to have a whole lot of... if there was consistency, we would be having a whole lot of Muslim individuals hauled in front of human rights tribunals for their particular stances on things like homosexuality and transgenderism and all the rest of it. You won't see it. You won't see the human rights tribunals going up. They won't touch that one. But if they were consistent, they would. Now, Watcott claimed that what he wrote in the flyer was an act of religious expression. Prove it wasn't. To be fair, like, I'm not a religious person. I don't believe that this is a correct approach to things. I will say, though, that you have some people who completely believe and absolutely you cannot change their mind. They are certain that specific events took place, specific conditions are true, and that an almighty being of some type tells them what is correct to believe. Okay, you can't change their mind on this. This is, to them, this is a part of their being. There are also people who you cannot change their mind. You cannot use science to show any other way, who believe that if you identify as a woman, that makes you a woman biologically speaking. And that if you identify as a man, that makes you a man biologically speaking. You cannot change their mind. This is a deeply held belief that they have. They will not tolerate any sort of contrary opinion to it, even when they might be wrong. In my eyes, in terms of your transgender activists and your Christian fundamentalist activists, you have two sides of the exact same coin. You have yin and yang. Because people go, well, people can convert from being religious. They can change their religion. They can be one religion and switch over to the other one. Or they could be religious and then suddenly not have any religion at all. They could become atheists. Plenty do. And plenty of atheists become religious. And plenty of people who are very, very certain that they are transgender come to realize that they're not. Many people go through their classic Americana. Many people go through years and years and years of believing this. They go through counseling and therapy, and they go through hormone replacement, and atheism is a phase. Everything's a phase. Everything's a phase. Everything. Just, life is one long protracted phase. Caused by sleep. How many more memes you got? How many more? Lay them on me. But no, in all seriousness, I have known people who went through a good number of years of their life convinced they were trans. One in particular, I won't mention who, like you guys wouldn't know them, but that's not the point, went so far as to have their sexual reassignment surgery done, and immediately thereafter regretted the entire thing, renounced their position on being trans, and just, like, it devastated them. But everyone just ushered them along towards it. Everybody goes along with it. So, in the same way that somebody who has a belief so integral to their being that God is real and that, you know, God forbids homosexuality and all the rest of it, in that same way, there are people who believe that they are transgender and believe that there is nothing abnormal about that. And working from the basic definition of abnormal, yes, it is abnormal. I'm not saying it makes you a bad person. I'm saying it's just not the norm. So what are you going to do? This to me, this human rights case is taking two people, integral, yes, into their word of the day. I've got more. That's like a 50-cent word. Back in like my elementary school days, we had a teacher who, like, they were like 25-cent words, there were 50-cent words, there were $1 words, and there were $2 words. I never heard of a $5 word. Never heard of one of those, but there were definitely $2 words. It's just all the ploy. It's like whose line is it anyway? Though the rules are made up and the money didn't matter. You didn't get paid for it, but you got told if it was like a $1 or $2 word, like you killed it. But anyway, yes, integral. This human rights tribunal took two people with two beliefs that eerily mirror one another, and it decided to say that one of those beliefs was just more valid, and that because it was more valid in their opinion, the other person had to pay a whole fucking load of money. Talk about inflation, right? It's not that the words become worth more or worth less as you go along, it's that they have it assigned to them. But, like, if you brought up transcendentalism, like, man, you just rocked yourself a $2 word if you used it correctly, right? If you were to describe a word or a phrase as onomatopoeia, look that one up. That would have been a $2 word. But enough of that, though. Back to this. A man was charged, not charged. A man was fined $55,000, more than the average Canadian income. All right, I'm gonna pull this up because the last time I saw it, it was like $48,000. Average Canadian full-time annual income. So, oh, it's gone up as of 2018. Although there's, you know, some wicked inflation here. Use the M word in class. Priceless. Oh, that's fair. According to the latest numbers, January 2018, the average Canadian salary is around $26.83, so $26.83 an hour, or $55,806.40 a year, based on a 40-hour work week. Of course, it's the average. So, but if you take the average wage, so that's where you're going to take part-timers, includes any all wage earners, your average wage is just under $50,000 a year. So either way, this man was fined scrapping $806.40. This man was fined the average Canadian income for a full-time worker in 2018 for offense. That's it. That's it. He said the bad words. He hurt somebody's feelings with the wrong words. he now has to pay $55,000 to that person. But we cruise on here. In the ruling, Cousineau described a 5-day hearing during which Watcott was wearing a white t-shirt with Ogre's face on it and derogatory statements written underneath. Quote, "In the hearing room for this complaint, we were witness to repeated, deliberate, and flagrant attacks on Miss Ogre based on nothing more than a belief that her existence is an affront." Well, an affront to what? An affront to God? An affront to this man's religion? Okay. Are you going to tell him it's not? Can you tell him it's not? It's his religion. It's his belief. It is his strongly held belief. For you to say that is not an affront to your religion is either that you are going to say that you decide what the religion is, or you are going to tell him that his religion is invalid, that his belief is invalid. You are going to claim, you're going to make the affirmative claim, there is no God. I wouldn't want to be the person touching that one. Adding, anyway, Cousineau wrote that, adding, Watcott continued to call Ogre he and Mr. during the course of the hearing, despite being told not to. To be very clear, this is part of the conduct that amounted to $20,000 worth of fines this man had to pay. 20 grand. I don't think that anybody here quite understands. $20,000 caused $20,000 worth of emotional damages caused in a 5-day? Where is it there? 5-day hearing. So $4,000 worth of offense was caused a day by this man's shirt and by saying Mr. and he rather than Miss and she. And you're going to tell me that speech isn't being compelled. Cousineau noted, there is conflict in this case between Mr. Watcott's religious belief that he should do everything in his power to stop a transgender woman from being elected to public office, and Miss Ogre's right, and the right of trans people more broadly, to enjoy equal dignified participation in the political life of this province. Note, politics isn't all that dignified. People are going to say mean shit about you. They're going to lie about you. They're going to defame you. They're going to say all kinds of shit. And you're a public figure. And they're campaigning against you. What are you going to do? You're going to brush that shit off. You're going to act like a big boy. Oh, sorry, a big girl in this case. You get on and put on your big kid pants, and you're just going to fucking deal with it. Somebody made noises with their face hole that you didn't like. That's it. Now they've got to pay. Anyway, the three-person tribunal, a massive jury of your peers, ruled that Watcott had discriminated against Ogre based solely on her gender. Not true. Being transgender is not a gender. You could be a man. You can have the gender expression of a man. You can have the gender expression of a woman, right? Or you can try and play some weird in-between shit and claim that I don't have a gender. It's all kind of like way up in the air. But it's not. All you're doing is just sharing elements of both of these particular gender roles. Yeah, I'm not surprised. No, like he's not spying. He's just, watching in. He pays rent. It's fine. The Keebler elves are okay. In my view, Cousineau wrote, the flyer is a modern version of a whites-only sign. Nope. Because so back in the day, right? Back in the day, if you owned a diner or some other business and you put a sign out front that said whites only, they literally, you could literally ban them from entering. You had the legal right to do that at the time. Like, you can't come in. It's like, well, what if they come in? They're trespassing. Well, what happens if they're trespassing? You can call the cops, or you can force them out yourself. Okay? Might it be hurting their feelings in the same way? Sure, maybe. Who's to say that the Human Rights Tribunal decision doesn't hurt my feelings? Like, it doesn't offend me. I don't get this, like, deeply held personal, like, oh my god, that's just so terrible. Oh. I find it objectionable. I find it to be unprincipled, and I find it to be, frankly, in violation of our charter rights. The right to thought, belief, and expression. However, we continue. It is an attempt to block the doors of government with a message that the political realm is for cisgender people only. It is an attempt to express his opinion that transgenderism, and in particular, like as an example, this Morgan Ogre's example, is not in line with what Bill Watcott believes to be Christian values. At this point, you're going to tone police him to the tune of 55 grand. He said the discrimination was severe and it was an intentional effort to block her from participating in politics based on gender. The tribunal also ruled that the flyer subjected Ogre to hate and referred to a case in Saskatchewan where Watcott had previously distributed flyers that were ruled by the Supreme Court of Canada to be hateful. Don't know the case. Ogre was cross-examined for 4 hours and 15 minutes by Watcott's lawyer. Relevance? How long was Watcott on the stand? Nobody mentions it, oddly enough. No one brings it. Did he have to answer any questions? I would assume so, considering he's the subject of this. Was he up there for like 4 hours? How is this in any way relevant? You're going to have a trial. Like, you made a complaint to the Human Rights Tribunal. They brought this man before the tribunal to be judged. You're going to have some responsibility. Yeah, you have the right to submit a complaint to the Human Rights Tribunal. They have a responsibility to bring this up and consider it, and you have a responsibility to show up and do your part. Tough shit if you don't like being there for more than 4 hours. Later in the hearing, she stated, "I'm a transgender woman. People kill transgender women because of who we are. Look, I'm a guy. People find it perfectly acceptable, all right, to slice up our dicks when we're born. Roundly. I believe there was a Scandinavian country, like one Scandinavian country that proposed, all right, the outlawing, the prohibition of male genital mutilation. I believe there was one. I don't know if it ever got passed. I remember a whole lot of shit got stirred up about it being, oh, well, this discriminates against minorities. It discriminates against people who think cutting baby dicks is okay. I happen to be fine discriminating against those people. It's not a religious thing. There are plenty of atheist people who get their kids circumcised. I don't agree with it, and I'm fine with discriminating against those people. Anyway, like, so just to point out, all right? It's like the world at large, like the Western world at large, because like you don't want to go to the Middle East with this shit. The Western world at large does not believe that it is okay to murder you based on your gender expression. They don't. They've got laws in place to punish people for saying mean words that hurt your feelings on the base of your gender expression. Okay? However, you can find it perfectly okay to promote and engage in the act of mutilating a infant boy's genitals No, I thought I heard some outcry there for a second, and then just Gone. Hushed right off. So I don't want to hear it. All right? I don't believe that there are any fundamental rights that you lack in this country compared to men or compared to cisgender people. I don't think there are any legislative rights that you lack. I can demonstrate to you without issue that there are rights that men lack, at the very least one. That's it. We're down by one. And if your focus is on human rights, well, guess what? You've got some fucking work to do. Anyway. And they start with this. And it's impossible to tell whether this is the ramblings of a person who's likely to do that or if it's not. After this flyer came out, I had to worry what Mr. Watcott looked like, but I also had to worry about other people who maybe gave him credibility. Shaun of the Dead is a better movie than Resident Evil. Odd flex, Boons. Odd flex. It's a vulnerable place already to be a candidate. Fuck off. Do you have any idea? Right. So as a note here, I think this was for provincial. I want to make sure I get this correct. Provincial office. Okay. So MPP, member of provincial parliament. Let's look this up. Here's what you're running. Here's what you're running for. All right. BC member of provincial parliament salary. This will be fun. Okay. Legislative Assembly of British Columbia. Basic compensation. Basic compensation for a member of Legislative Assembly, MLA. Okay, so it's an MLA in British Columbia. Is established under the Members' Remuneration and Pensions Act, MRPA, MRPA. Effective April 1st, 2018, the annual basic compensation each MLA receives is $108,105.35. So, look, if you're in a position to run for this and be seriously considered, you lost by only 400 votes. So if you're in a position to run for this and be considered, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to. You know what? You deal with some shit. I'm willing to bet that at my job, in my workplace, I deal with more shit than you do. All right, making hell of a lot less than what you're running for. Bi-weekly, $4,146.51. Man, I can't explain the level of verbal shit I would take from people if it meant I was making over $100,000 a year. Man, you call me whatever the fuck you want. You call me a she, you call me an it, you call me a zir, I don't care. I will take all of that shit and just give you the thumbs up the whole time. $100,000 a year? Fucking right I would. Let's see here. So, percent of basic compensation. Yeah. Premier Minister. MLA pension plan. Let's see this one. Legislative changes. So the amount, so contributions fixed. The amount of an annual pension is based on a benefit accrual rate, yada, yada. Not entitled to a pension unless he or she has served in the legislature for at least 6 years, including the years the member served immediately prior to the induction of this plan. Unreduced pension at age 65 with the option for a retired member to take a reduced pension between the ages of 60 and 65. 3% reduction for each year pension. The normal form of pension for... Like, and then you know you've got expenses to go along with this. I will continue on, but I feel the need to point out that you are in a position to be considered for a job that pays over $100,000 a year, that comes with some serious benefits to it, some expense accounts, and, you know, access to people and capital and all the rest of it, all these social and professional benefits. I'm sorry, the fact that you had to endure somebody printing a mean flyer about you, I don't give two shits. I don't think I can find one shit to give, all right? And I produce plenty of those on my own. So anyway, as we roll on here, fuck. Where are we at? There it is. After this, it is a vulnerable place to be a candidate, and to be a transgender candidate is really vulnerable because people listen to outrageous things like this. People listen to all sorts of outrageous shit. All sorts of it. Welcome to public life. People are going to say mean things about you. People say mean things about you in private life. Fucking deal with it. Nobody made you run for MLA. All right? Ogre said that she had to explain to her two children that somebody hates me because of who I am. Yeah. People in the world are going to hate you just for being who you are. Your kids learned a valuable lesson. Some people are assholes. Fuck. That's the end of this particular post. This is a particularly impromptu stream. I just kind of cruised my Facebook feed and up this popped, and I thought, oh, this sounds interesting because everyone keeps telling me that compelled speech isn't a thing. You know, no one's going to prison for saying the wrong things or offending the wrong people. If he doesn't pay this fine, he would go to prison. He would be going to prison because a human rights tribunal decided that he printed mean words, and in the $20,000 portion of it, he said some mean words, and he used the wrong pronouns, right, in the courtroom, and he had a shirt. He wore the wrong shirt. So there's $55,000, or you're going to jail. Well, let's put it this way: if I'd be going to jail because I couldn't pay that money. And if it came down, like, oh, well, you know, somebody crowdfunded it for you, or a generous benefactor, no. I'm sorry. Like, I wholeheartedly support Jordan B. Peterson's position, Dr. Peterson's position, in that you want to fine me, I wouldn't pay it. You want to send me to jail? Go on a hunger strike. Like, I will not accept this. So, for anyone out there who thinks that your charter guaranteed rights to freedom of expression aren't going to be infringed by this, and you're not going to be like hauled off and thrown in jail if you just happen to not be able to pay $55,000 because you have a religious belief or any other kind of strongly held personal belief, right? That encroaches, that oversteps on one of these protected classes. Tough shit. Let's see here. Just so you guys know. There it is. Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I'm going to go to the English one because holy shit, I can't read French. Fundamental freedoms. Now, I will start with this because somebody will bring it up if I don't. Rights and Freedoms in Canada, Section 1. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms guarantees the rights and freedoms set out in it, subject only to, only to such reasonable limits prescribed by law as can be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. That entire first chunk is like, yeah, these are all of your rights except when, like, the government and the courts say that they're not. 2. Fundamental freedoms. Everyone has the following fundamental freedoms. Section 2A, freedom of conscience and religion. It's the first one there. First one's listed. B, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication. C, freedom of peaceful assembly. And D, freedom of association. Democratic rights, because some of these will overflow into the running for office bit. Every citizen of Canada has the right to vote in an election of members of the House of Commons or of a legislative assembly and to be qualified for membership therein. Was Morgan Ogre qualified for a position of in the assembly? Yeah, she ran. Lost by 400 votes, but ran. Was allowed to run for it. Faced criticism for, being who she is, believing what she believes, by somebody who is who they are and believes what they believe. And that's really the only one that sits there. There's no else. Like, the rest of the stuff is based on how often we have elections and when they can be suspended. Mobility rights, legal rights. It's all set out there. Equality rights. This is 15.1. Every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination and, in particular, without discrimination based on race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability. This must be an old copy of the PDF because that has also been amended at this point to include gender identity and expression. However, equality rights 15, subsection 2. Subsection 1 does not preclude any law, program, or activity that has as its object the amelioration of conditions of disadvantaged individuals or groups, including those that are disadvantaged because of race, national or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability, or gender identity or expression. It's funny, but the Charter does this 2 very notable times. Yes, you have the absolute freedom to do this, except when we say you don't. Yes, you have the absolute freedom of protection under the law, except when we say you don't. I'll bring up a story I've mentioned a few times before. I was not an abnormal kid in the sense that I got picked on in high school too. Ooh, shocker. A mouthy little snot like me got picked on in high school. Who would have thought? But here's the kicker. Verbally harassed by the terms that anybody today would call it. I faced harassment. I faced physical assaults. All right. I faced social ostracism. And all of this because the people doing it thought I was gay. Homophobic slurs, the whole bit of it. Constant. Every day. Span of about maybe a little more than a year. A little more than a academic year, because like I dealt with it during the summer and that shit when these people saw me, but aside from that, constantly during the academic year. I had notebooks just written down days, dates, when this shit happened, reported to the school. Nothing. Okay. Shoved around in the hallways, people threatening me on the way home from school. Kid shot a pellet gun at me once from a driving car. Finally went back, just turned right around, went back to the school. Told them, look, I know who this was. I saw them. I saw their stupid fucking hat. I got the make and model of the car. Color of it was like, this car was driving by, shot at me with a pellet gun or something. At this exact point, I said, I know who it was. Right? Further on down the road, they got into an altercation with a bunch of other kids after shooting at them with the same air rifle. And by the way, this wasn't some stupid fucking, plastic airsoft pellet gun, like lead pellet air rifles. The ones like you can hunt small game with and shit. Anyway, I digress. I bring this up, and I bring it up to the school, and I explain, look, constantly being called faggot and having people fucking like shoving me on the way home from school, shooting this shit at me all over my ass all every fucking day in school. Right? I've had it. This needs to be... Took it to the guidance counselors because I knew... my best friends later in high school, his mom was the guidance counselor there. Or this guy, like the guidance counselor, like guidance department secretary. And I came in, I'm like, something needs to be fucking done about this. Okay? Mr. Roberts. This man was massive. Like, scary big. All right? I never saw him angry. My friend's mom did once. Said it scared her shitless. Just terrified her. This man was like a big old brick shit house. Anyway, so he hauled a couple of the kids who had been picking on me into the guidance office, read them the riot act. Right? This shit kept going on. Brought it back up again, documented it, brought it back into them, said, this is still continuing. So, there's a police liaison officer. Basically, kind of the go-between between the local police department and the schools. So that if the schools have an issue and it requires police involvement, they can easily reach out to that officer. That officer can obviously liaise, act as a tie between the two organizations, and can have matters addressed. Well, he got brought in, right? Questioned the guys involved. Yep. Acknowledged that they had been attacking me because of their belief that I was gay. He's a fag, they said. Like, really would have surprised my girlfriend, but that was a whole other... She'd been shocked and appalled. You're faking this straight thing pretty well. Anyway. Officer comes in, sits with me. Says, okay, I need to ask you a couple of questions. Okay. You've got my, like, written statements of everything that's happened. Yes. Okay. Says now, there's evidence to indicate that this is an issue that's been done because they believe that you're gay. And I'm sitting here like, no, you fucking think? But anyway, we continues on. It's like, I need to ask you. You need to ask me. Well, are you gay? No, I'm not gay. Like, okay, because you know, if you were, then this would be something that would have, you know, some consequences to it based on, you know, this would qualify as a you know, a hate motivated offense. I'm like, 1 second, roll that back for me, just a minute there. You're going to tell me that you have sufficient evidence to demonstrate that they are doing this because they believe me to be gay, and yet, because I am not actually gay, this is just going to fall by the wayside. You're not compelled to take further action on this. It's not worthy of your time. Well, it's a different case if you know, if you were gay. It's just not the same circumstances. So, long story short, right? Because I was straight, a cop looks and goes, it's just not worth our time. Not worth it for us to get involved. Every individual is equal before and under the law and has the right to the equal protection and equal benefit of the law without discrimination, and in particular without discrimination based on national or ethnic origin, color, religion, sex, age, or mental or physical disability. Actually, I believe this is quite an older one because I do believe sexuality is in there as well now. These are a couple of the reasons why I have no qualms in saying that Canada is not a fundamentally free country. Your speech can be compelled. The law decides when it wants to protect you based on who's the victim class du jour. And if you're not part of that group, well, too bad. Fuck it, you're on your own. And I want to be very clear on the high school thing. If I didn't have people shooting at me and physically assaulting me on and off school property, my house wasn't getting egged on a frequent basis because a bunch of people thought I was gay. And it was just like, ah, you faggot, ah, you queer, all the rest of it. If that was it, fine. All right? I'll call them a fag, call them a queer, call them a cunt, call them all the rest of it. I don't care. If it's just that, fine. But if you want to come out and you want to get up my face and try and intimidate me, you want to shove me around, you want to shoot your fucking air rifle at me, you want to shove my face into the dirt on my walks home from school, you know what's going to happen? Yeah, all of that shit gets lumped together and you get to deal with all of it. Except when the cops don't care. I'm so sick of biased human rights courts, of people having their offense monetized, like financially weaponized against people who just don't believe the same thing they believe. I figured this recording has now gone on for about an hour, and I dare say we've meandered away off of the article, but I think you catch my gist. And I apologize for the nervous clicking. Typically, I just like the enamel texture of the Zippo lighter. The click has something. It's like that clickety pen you had that one kid had in school. It's like never stop fucking clicking it. But if you were the kid with that pen, you're like, yeah, click, 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 click. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this thing. In any case, the next time somebody tells you that they're not out to compel speech or they're not out to imprison people who misgender other people, it's right here. This right here is what you're going to show them and go, yeah, uh-huh. Until I speak out in a public forum and say that I don't believe the same things you believe and that your particular beliefs go against my beliefs. You better hope that if you're the one doing that, oh, the cops swing your way that day. The human rights courts just happen to feel a little more generous to your side of that argument. They're not going to. But you better cross your fucking fingers. Anyway, folks, this has been an impromptu rant by yours truly, JT Viper. Hope you guys have a lovely and free rest of your day, morning, night, whatever it might be, wherever you may be. Cheers.